on the last day of the month. This is on a Wednesday, depending on where you're joining in from. From Lagos, we are saying good morning. Depending on where you are, good afternoon and good evening. We welcome you to today's webinar, session promoting mental health and wellness in the workplace. My name is Derek Abincha. I'm heading sales at Workpay within the West Africa region, and very eager to see how we can be able to deliberate further based on this subject. A thing or two about Workpay and how we came about today's topic. We are a software company helping businesses to better manage and pay their employees on time. We specialize in core HR functions as well as payments, currently servicing well over 800 businesses across the continent, registered in about 40 countries, and supporting a total of 80,000 employees. And today's topic is an interesting one, and maybe just a fun fact to give more context on why we believe this is interesting enough to discuss and to deliberate and to see how this problem can be resolved within the workplace. According to the World Health Organization, more than half of the world's population are currently in work, and 15% working age adults live with a mental disorder. Looking at this from a global economy cost perspective, about $1 trillion each year is reduced in terms of productivity due to depression and anxiety, excuse me, at the workplace. So you can imagine what this does when not resolved. At Workpay, we believe that everybody has the right to work in a safe and healthy working environment. Hence, the decision for us to sit down and discuss about this, most importantly, during this month of mental health and awareness. Please share with us where you are listening in from on the chat box. We are very keen to learn more about you. Tell us where you're listening from and also what you do. Then at the end of the session, please also, in the spirit of feedback, we'd also be keen to understand what you might have picked from this webinar, and so that we can be able to use that to further refine future engagements such as this one. So without much ado, I'd like to invite our moderator for today. She is our Regional Business Development Manager for West Africa, Ruona Oruovo. Ruona, you're welcome. Please take it up.
Thank you very much, Derek. Good morning, everyone. Please, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so for our participants, I don't know if you could just drop a comment on the chat box if you can hear me, so that I know that I'm being followed. Okay, I think I've sent one. Oh, okay, thank you, Dorothy. Okay, so while that is going on, so I think I can dive right in. We have a few starting points, places to start from. I think first things first, we might let's just see how we can circle back on some do's and don'ts and how this webinar is going to take place. You know, how we are going to move ahead. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I was expecting some feedback on the chat box on, the on where we are in terms of everyone hearing me. Also, I think as Derek had mentioned, we would like you to drop your names, if possible, and also just let us know where you are hearing us from, and if possible as well, you could also add the medium to which you got to hear about the webinar. Maybe you're joining in from YouTube, LinkedIn, and as the case may be. So just drop it on the chat box. We would like to really know you. So for the purpose of this webinar, please keep your mic muted if you are not talking at any time, so that we can be able to, hear each other at every given point. So for questions and questions or maybe any comments, you can always just drop it on the chat box, so that we can be able to, hear anything you have to say, or you could just note it down for the end of the meeting. All right, so I'm going to start with the introduction of the participants. Here we have three key major people who we are really, really glad to hear from. We want them to be able to share their thoughts with us on what they think on this topic. So as Eric had mentioned, this is a very controversial topic, and we are looking forward to, um, okay. Okay, so this is a very controversial topic, and we are of course looking forward to hearing from everyone and seeing how we can be able to move forward. This is the 21st century. We have lots of Gen Zs, in working with us, and they have their mindset set on a particular way of doing things. So we thought it best, of course, to bring these experts. I call them experts in their field. So as I'm going to introduce them, you're going to see why I call them experts, because they've been in the industry, they know how these things work. And of course, we are leaning on their experience and their knowledge to be able to, of course, make things better. So we have Dr. Chris Abojei. He's a doctor, which I am really looking forward to hearing from him. He's a doctor who basically has lots of experience. He's a licensed clinical psychologist and also a certified assistant professional and also a wellness trainer. So basically, he practices or he has, he basically has associations with different professional bodies across not only Africa, basically across the world. And I mean, who better to be able to give us some insights as to how we think this can be able to work. So he's the founder of PsychAid EAP. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. Really, really glad to be here. We also have Dorothy Tunde-Ajala. This lady, I think we met a few times before now. She's a very amazing HRO personnel. I'm going to call it the personnel because she cuts across different various industries over the years, having over 24 years experience, human resource, performance management, basically people wellness, HR transformation, basically change agent in the industry as well. We also have we have the CEO of Alliance Life Insurance in Ghana, Mr. Gideon Ataraire. So he's the MD basically. He's from Delta State, uh, my own state basically, and he's based in Ghana at the moment, basically helping Alliance, Insurance with expansion. Also he's an accredited from an associate for the ACIPM, and also an associate of the Chartered Institute of Insurance. Thank you so much. So these are the experts we have in the house, to be able to give us some clarification on how we can be able to do better in the workplace. So not only about the new generation of people joining us in the workplace, how we can be able to make the workplace more conducive, less toxic, seeing how the talking about how the global inflation has affected everyone, what's going on in the minds of the employees. These are things that we might be able to have some sort of insight on while we are here today. So I'm going to start with our doctor. So Dr. Chris, I would like you to tell us just a little bit on what you think on this topic. As a clinical psychologist, what is your view on mental wellness? Or I wouldn't want to say illness at this point. What would be your view on mental wellness for a general and in a general scope, and also as it relates to employees, in organizations?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ruona. I think, I like the fact that you corrected yourself when you were talking about mental illness and then illness, because it's also important to help people understand that, mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness are different concepts. They're totally different concepts. Mental health talks about, a person's ability to actualize their potential, to be the best that they can be, to manage normal stresses of life, to be productive. So we usually would say this in the mental health space, that you cannot have productivity without mental health, because that's a core aspect of your mental health. So when you think about mental health, don't think about it from a place of depression, anxiety, and all these other things. Think about it more from a place of, hey, how can I actualize my potential? How can I be the best that I can be? How can I be productive? And that's what your mental health is all about. Maybe to break this a little bit, smaller into, something that I think people can understand better, is that when you think about your mental health, think about it from three things: the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you react. That's simply what your mental health is all about. And when you take this definition, or you take this explanation, you get to see how relevant this is, not just in the workplace, but generally with everybody. Because without our emotions, without our thoughts, without our behaviors or our reactions to situations, who are we, right? Who are we?
Yeah.
We can't do anything. We can't function. We can't be productive. We can't even, perform at work. And that's why this conversation is very, very important, because it's not just about the absence of malaria or typhoid. It's not just about all those things. It's that, hey, you need to be able to function. You need to be the best that you can be. And the only way you can do that is if these three things, your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions, are intact. Now, when we then talk about mental illness, that usually is a diagnosable condition. And I had to emphasize that. That means that you don't just label yourself with a mental illness because you feel the need to, or because it's a buzzword on social media. Everybody says, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I'm anxious. I have PTSD. I have bipolar. I have ADHD. The truth is, you don't just do that, because it has to be diagnosed. It has to be diagnosed by an expert, and there are criteria for diagnosis, right? If I were to summarize the key criteria for making a diagnosis, you want to look at the duration. How long has this person been experiencing these symptoms? If I'm sad for a day or two, that doesn't make me depressed, right? It doesn't make me depressed. If I'm anxious because I got an email from my boss, that doesn't mean that I have an anxiety disorder. If I have mood swings, that doesn't mean that I have bipolar, right? If I struggle with concentrating for maybe a couple of days, that doesn't mean that I have ADHD, right? These are normal reactions that could be induced by stress or situational factors. And so it's important that we take note of the duration, we take note of the level of distress that it's causing the person, we take note of how much these symptoms affect the person's functioning, and we then take note of how does it deviate from the norms, the societal norms, and deviate from the person's usual response. If we have all those things, and you see there's a lot of questions to answer, right? When you think about all those questions, that's when you then say, hey, you know what, maybe this is a mental illness, right? But you need a professional to be able to help you or guide you to answering these questions. So it's not enough for me to feel sad, for me to say, hey, I'm depressed because I feel sad. No, it's not enough, because you have to go through, a process of diagnosis. And again, this is important because maybe we'll talk about this as we go on. The brain doesn't work with reality. The human brain works with perception. That means that the moment you start to say to yourself, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I have this, I have that, your brain takes that as its own perception and starts to work towards it, right? It starts to work towards it. This is what many people don't know. It sounds good to diagnose or to label yourself, but what you don't understand is that your brain takes whatever you give to yourself and starts to work towards it. So you must be
Yeah,
careful in creating this diagnosis. And if you must, speak to a professional to help you. But the focus for today should be about how do I remain productive? How do I
exactly.
maintain my mental well-being, which is the core aspect of mental health. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. So I think for me, I kind of relate to when you talk about having people who, oh, they feel a certain way, and then they self-diagnose themselves. They call some strange names. Even me as a person, I haven't even heard it. I haven't even heard of it ever. And then you ask them, who diagnosed you, who gave you this condition, what are you taking? How are you helping your moods? And they don't have any answer. They tell you things like, oh, it's how they felt, or maybe they are looking it up in the internet, and and things like that. So I believe that these are some of the things that we can be able to get some clarification on today. So I think thank you so much, Doctor. So I think my next question will be directed to Dorothy. Basically, as we have been saying, employee wellness is basically gradually looking at the COVID era, the work from home era. So it's gradually becoming a thing that we are resonating with, that we are looking at, becoming a priority for most HR managers, as well as employers, basically. So we are facilitating, promoting physical and mental health. HR managers, are looking to provide wellness programs, resources that can basically help employees to be able to manage stress, improve their overall health, basically, and also some sort of, work-life balance. So I wanted to put this question to you. What do you think of this? Coming up with programs, helping employees in the workspace, and of course, looking at managing their mental and physical health. How would you best, look at this angle? You're muted, so just hold on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So good to hear you. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Rona, and very lovely to meet all my fellow members. Um, yeah, so let me start by saying that HR managers or HR professionals in the workplace play uh, um, a very critical role in providing, uh, ensuring a culture of wellness or providing wellness programs uh, and resources that support employees to enable them manage stress, to help them improve overall health, and of course, to basically help maintain a work-life balance. So in doing that, I always say that, you know, um, as an HR professional, you shouldn't just because everybody is putting together a wellness programs, you copy and paste. Never like that. The first thing you
Okay.
want to do as an HR professional is to, you know, conduct an analysis to determine the wellness needs of your organizations. Basically, like diagnosing the needs of the organization, because uh, the needs can be different from one organization to the other. So you want to kind of like run a survey to understand, okay, what are the actual wellness needs of my organization. Then you want to develop like wellness strategy, for example. The, and the strategy should be based on kind of data, the kind of results you have managed to get uh, from the survey that you have run. So the strategy would include um, putting together a range of programs to address different dimensions of wellness, some of which, the good doctor spoke about. Another thing you probably want to do is to ensure that you're educating everyone, because you see a lot of people, and I think it was the doctor that mentioned it, or you, Ruona, that mentioned it just now, that once there's a buzzword out there, people, just latch onto it and then they begin to talk about it. So, and then sometimes you find out that there's some stigma associated with real mental health issues or wellness issues. So, you want to try and ensure that you are educating your organization, the people in your organization, putting it out there so people really understand. When they say, "Oh, please, something is affecting my mental health," which is the buzz with Gen Zs and things like that. So when it says, so they really truly understand what that statement is. So education and education and education and education. It can never be enough, but you also want to ensure that people understand and then they are able to be sensitive to others going through those issues. Then, of course, you not to educate, you want to try and also ensure that you are promoting culture where and providing resources, for example, to help people balance both work and life. For example, kind of places like people are you setting boundaries? There's some organizations where if the leader does not leave, if the manager does not leave the office, people are not allowed to leave the office. So what kind of policy are organizations putting in place to address this? There are also, even with all the COVID-19, uh, um, uh, 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 during COVID-19, where flexible work arrangements became popular, work from home, there are still a lot of Nigerian organizations who do not, subscribe to it. And I would like to challenge leaders that respect to say, look, just because somebody else does not mean that they are not working. So it's not about
Productive.
activities, it's actually about the productivity, the results that happen. So, foster a more flexible work environment, place policies that, that support uh, flexibility, some level of flexibility based on data that you receive, work from home policies and all of that. So that, those are some of the, then of course, organizations can also, from an HR perspective now, can also establish or introduce employee assistance programs where, there are lines for, if there are, I've worked in an organization where, one day someone who was in a customer service arm of the business got up one day and started sending some odd emails. And of course, when you read those emails, you knew that the person was not okay. So, I'm glad that, organization provide, opportunities for counselors to the professionals, like, the doctors that are professionals.
Licensed, yeah.
Yes, are licensed to actually provide such support. And these are the things we can't lip service it. We need to stop lip servicing it as HR. Just because everybody's hey, mental health, is mental health. No, it's about the what are actually putting in place that matters. Then also from wellness angle as well, you want to kind of establish well-being lab, for example, something that doesn't even cost the organization much, something as simple as competitions around who's taking the most steps today. I mean, I know Fitbit and other smart cars that are very reasonably priced are available in the market. These are some things that the organization invest in for their people and say, hey, whoever has the highest steps for the week, we have something for you. Just little things that HR professionals in the work can put in place to encourage.
I was thinking, yeah. So I agree with you. So I was thinking that we could specifically come back to this. I think this is something I really noted that I really want to ask you. So we are going to really come back to this particular point you just made. So because one of the key things I admire in an HR personnel is actually the ability to understand the mood of the employees. It's not easy. Taking for example, if you have an organization that has over 10 employees, it's not really easy to understand how these people are. So it's now falls back on maybe the HR, maybe their line managers, to be able to communicate all of this appropriately. But like you said, as an HR personnel, HR manager, you should be able to at some point give some certain rounds, to be able to see how you can really manage this. So I think this now takes me back to basically to Mr. Gideon for this question. So basically, you as an MD, as an MD CEO of an organization, promoting mental wellness in the workplace, basically in most cases requires managerial inputs, some multifaceted approach and techniques, approvals. This usually falls, from top to bottom. So you always have, unique challenges for employees, individuals, and even sometimes the HR managers can even reach out to you on some proposals on how to be able to, manage, mental illness in the workplace. So I would like you to give us your perspective on how you think mental health can be promoted in the workplace, and also looking at it from from a CEO's point of view. How do you see yourself, implementing this? How do you see yourself promoting wellness, in your organization, or how can you advise us to?
Beautiful. So first of all, I like the topic, and I like the way that Dr. Abojei has defined this topic for us. Makes it very easy. He says how people think, how people feel, and how people react. I mean, on that premise, it makes a lot of sense for me as a CEO. If my people don't think well, if they don't think through things, if they don't feel good, if they don't feel well, if they don't react well, I mean, then what business do we have?
No
So there's nothing, actually, nothing. Then there's no business. So looking at it from that perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. So for me, I think that this issue should be looked at the same way we look at other issues in the organization. Okay. So if you want people to be productive, most times from the L&D perspective, you then carry out a needs analysis, you create objectives, you do all of that, you implement, you measure. There's also performance management. These are deliberate things. So for me, I think that when we talk about mental wellness, it should be something that is planned. So it's not ad hoc, no. It is planned, it is deliberate. That is number one. Two, it is communicated. It is communicated. So it's not something that you just come out of the blue. No, in the strategy of the organization from the get-go and every annual retreat, there must be a place for mental wellness. How do we want our people to think, feel, and react in 2024? So if that is put, if we have that kind of perspective, there will be deliberate plans there. And then that plan will now be communicated. And then whatever initiatives that come out of the plan must then be implemented. So I'll take them one by one. So in terms of planning, it shouldn't just be a few, 2, 3 HR people just sit somewhere and then just plan how everyone will think, feel, and react during the year. No, it will fail, because most times when you don't involve people, things will fail. And just like Madam Dorothy said, we need to involve people, we need to ask them, we need to feel the vibes. But for us to do that, we need to empower the people with the communication. First, a presentation about mental wellness, the myth, the realities, the facts of the matter, what people should think about. So everyone is now on the same page. People are okay, so this is what mental health means, how we feel, how we think, how we react. When you get people to that level, then when HR then takes the leadership of, okay, so how do we come up with a strategy, which is the planning, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Then,
it becomes easier.
yeah, it becomes easier. You have a lot of buying, you have a lot of inputs and all of that. And then the implementation. Implementation now takes a lot of things. There are some deliberate activities that HR must then suggest or propose. Some of them will include real physical activities. Dorothy was mentioning some examples. We do a few in our company, but maybe when we get there, we'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
some deliberate physical activities there. She also mentioned assistance services. That is also part of the implementation. But if you get the first step wrong, the planning, the awareness, you will put all of these things in place and people will not use them. I've worked in an organization where we had assistance service. People, they never used them. We had psychologists that were paying month on month. People never went there because the first step was wrong. People didn't know that they needed this. There were a lot of myths. There are still a lot of myths and stigma around mental wellness. So for
Exactly.
me, in summary, I would say as a CEO, mental health is something that is part of strategy. Just as I will have L&Ds, just as I will have sales, just like I will have my technical strategy, my marketing strategy, I will have a mental health strategy. How will my people feel, think, and react for the next year? Then think about the planning. So what do we need to do? Then bring the people along, create a lot of awareness, then everyone is in a good state. And then we then implement. You asked a question that as a CEO, if HR brings some of these things for me to approve, will I approve them? The truth is that, yes, will I be willing to approve them? It's a no-brainer. It's like the guy in L&D says, oh, this is our learning plan for the year. You ask me, am I going to approve our learning plan? I mean, if I don't approve the learning plan, how will the people become competent? How will they work? Or it's like the sales and marketing people, they bring our marketing plan for the year. We want to promote our brand like this, want to promote this product. You're asking me if I will approve it. Or it's like the sales people, they say we want to do activations and this is our plan, whether I will approve it. So it depends on where you situate the importance of this. That is what then determines whether it's a part of the organization. So I'll stop here. I believe that a couple of things will still come up and with specific examples on this, but that's my perspective on this.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. So also why I actually asked that is because we have been faced with some policies. We have a case whereby you have maybe the MD or the CEO of an organization. It's still very much not in the present generation, if I could say it that way. And we have this mentality as we are in Africa to brush things aside. We always tell ourselves to man up. Is it this small thing that's making you feel like this? So you get to that point when it gets to for management to bring some sort of changes, policies to enable even head of departments to key into that vision. And they tell you, why do we need a wellness department? Why do we need to care about these things? If you're not feeling fine, you man up. It's this small thing that is making you like this. And so I think that's part of where the learning comes in. Okay. Having some sort of enlightenment, educating everyone of the importance of these things. So you gave us an instance where you've seen a situation in an organization where this doctor, the psychologist, is being paid and nobody's utilizing it. That is where awareness comes in. A lot of people are not enlightened on what they should even discuss with these doctors, how we should be. I've seen someone who has been clinically depressed for years, and they don't even know what's wrong with them. And they are not enlightened to know that, okay, let me go and see a doctor, or I'm expected to see a doctor in this condition. So enlightenment in that same organization. You gave an example. There are people who are going through so series of problems that they actually need to talk to someone on providing mental health care, but they do not know the need or the use, so they don't tend to see the usefulness. You see an employee come to work in the office in the morning, and they would just be gloomy, and you see their productivity level is down to the bare minimum. I think you want to say something to
Yes, I
that.
want to say something on that. So this is typically what happens in every organization. So this issue today is about mental wellness. Tomorrow, the L&D people will complain that, you see, we want to send people for training and the managers do not want to allow them to go for training. The marketing people will come, oh, we need to do a lot of promos and management do not want to approve them. HR will come, oh, there are some of our initiatives, and then management is saying, management will say no if they cannot see the link between what you are planning to do and the value that it
End
brings to the
results.
organization.
Exactly.
You get it? So you don't just come up with something and say, we want to do assistance service. What is assistance service? What value does it bring to the organization? How does it relate to the well-being of the employees? How does it move us in terms of productivity? So if you don't do your homework well, no matter the initiative that you bring, health and wellness as a part of it, your homework must be done very well. A point where people don't see the use of an initiative you have launched, there's a question mark about where you are starting from, the awareness. A point where you have resistance by top management, there's a question mark somewhere. A point where you have resistance from the CEO saying, no, I don't think. How will a CEO ever say that? Something that will help them, the employees, to think, feel, and react. I mean, what else do you do at work? How will a CEO ever say that a proposal that comes and then is saying that this will help our employees think, feel, and react, and it will improve our productivity by X, Y, Z? And the CEO will say no. So the work starts from the awareness, like I mentioned. It starts from the conviction, the sale of whatever initiative that you are bringing on board. When that is done very well, then every other thing will fall into place. So that's what I wanted to say. It's not peculiar to just health and wellness. Even the L&D people will complain. The HR people, performance, everybody, even in marketing, they will complain. But it boils down to, have you convinced the people of the value that this initiative will bring?
Going to add.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you so much. Of course, that's why we are here. I'm sure the MDs and the CEOs here, they are also still seeing and hearing from you, and also seeing the need to, of course, have some sort of leaning towards implementation such as this. So I think we can now move on to Dr. Chris. I have a question regarding you were making your points the other time, and something struck me out then. So specifically, when do you think would be a right time, for an employee or an individual to seek a psychologist? How often do you would you recommend some sort of evaluation for people? Because of course we're talking about wellness in the workplace, mental health for our employees. How do you think, or how often do you think this should be a conversation in the door? How often do you think a doctor should be seen or for evaluation?
Okay, so at the top of my head, I'm asking, are you ready for the answer?
We
Are
are
you
ready.
ready?
So it's on
Yeah,
us.
you're ready. Okay, so maybe to make it easier to understand, I think I'll look at it from physical health, right? Look at physical health. In fact, let's even look at the definition of health as a whole. And the definition of health here is that health is not just the absence of illness or infirmity, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, right? So that means that if you take away one of it, if you take away um, physical health, you are not, even if you have mental health and you have social well-being, you're still not healthy. If you take away mental health, you're still not healthy. If you take away social well-being, now social well-being includes your relationships, spirituality, finances. That's why, I run an EAP organization, and most of when we go to organizations, we hear this from employees. They say, hey, don't worry, just give us money, we'll be fine. We don't need mental health. But I
Money
say to
solves
them
all
that
problems.
I say to them that that is just one aspect of your health, right? That is just one aspect of your health. Now, the reason why I'm coming from this dimension is that the same way we recommend that everyone should have at least once a year an annual health check, right? At least once a year, right? Go to the hospital, do an annual health check, right? It's the same way we would recommend that you do an annual social health check, an annual
Okay.
mental health check as well, right? With mental health, we've made it a little bit easier, whereby we'll say that before you get to the stage of talking to a psychologist or so, you can just constantly check yourself. And it's so simple that you can ask yourself 3 questions every day, right? And like I mentioned earlier, these questions border around your emotions, border around your thoughts, and border around your basic functioning. So you ask yourself, how has my sleep been?
Okay.
Why? If you speak to every medical professional, whether physical health or mental health, they'll tell you that one of the areas that is affected when there's something wrong with your health is your sleep.
Yeah.
That is number one, even though people will tell us that if you sleep 8 hours a day, you're wasting your life. But the reality of this is that sleep is designed to actually help you heal, help you
Wow.
recover, help prepare you for the next day, help prepare you for productivity, right? In fact, studies have even shown that people who are sleep deprived have a shorter life expectancy. So when you think that you are grinding and you're hustling and you are depriving yourself of sleep, you're actually shortening your life expectancy according to research, right? So how has my sleep been? Number
Okay.
2, how have I been feeling? How is my emotions? How have I been feeling? Have I been really sad, angry, irritable, forgetting things? How have I been feeling? And then number 3, which is also important, how has my appetite been? If you can constantly check these 3 things, appetite, sleep, and mood, you will be able to tell before something goes wrong, right? Now, this is your responsibility to do every day. Now, regarding the question, which is how often should I then speak to a therapist? In some countries, every family has a psychologist, a family psychologist. Just the same way you have a family doctor. So what I would say is, because we're still at the point where we're still trying to get used to this system and how this works, when you go to the hospital for your annual health check, request for a psychological evaluation.
Okay.
That's what I would say. So request for somebody to just, ask you basic questions. Now, for some organizations who have implemented EAP, we've also designed some systems where there is a quick 1-minute test that you can take. So we created a barcode and it's on the screen of everybody. So you can just scan the barcode and then you answer the questions and you get an email response that tells you how you're doing. Are you distressed? Are you okay? And based on that response, there will not be a recommendation that says, hey, go and talk to the therapist or go and talk to the EAP or go and talk to. So I think that way it becomes very simple, But if you ask me how often, at least once a year, when you see your doctor for your annual health check, just do a quick
Yeah.
psychological evaluation. Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. However, I have a very funny question.
Yeah,
Okay.
please go
So
ahead.
you said one of the quick evaluations you can do as a person, before seeing a doctor, but before thinking if you need to see a doctor, is asking, how have I been feeling? What about people that have money problems or that have any other problem that is making them sad? So
Well,
how do you differentiate between that feeling and how
mm,
you're feeling? So because people want to understand,
yeah,
I for one, I want to understand. Uh, you can never, someone who's going through a mental problem, you can never really understand what's going on in their head. Actually, you
mm,
cannot. However, as me as a person, as in a position of whether maybe I could speak to a friend and say, oh, maybe you should see a doctor regarding this. How do you differentiate between a feeling of trying to have a problem that you are battling with and then comparing it to mental health? Can a problem also affect your mental health? Or like, is there a distinction? Is there a difference somewhere there?
well, thank you. I think you've almost answered the question with the last statements, right? Because even though we had said that you need three things, you need your physical, mental, and then social well-being for you to be really healthy. But what we've also seen is that at the center of this is the mental health, right? That means that if there's anything wrong with your physical health, it affects your mental health as well. If there's anything wrong with your social well-being, which is spirituality, your relationship, imagine if your girlfriend or your boyfriend serves you breakfast. Now, for those of us who don't know what that is, they've just broken your heart, right? It affects your mental health as well, right? Look at the situation with the fuel scarcity and all that. It affects your mental health. Every experience you have all affect your mental health, right? Because your mental health, permit me to say this, is the seat that coordinates every other aspect of your well-being, right? And so, like you said, if you're having money issues, it's likely going to affect your mental health as well. Now, to what degree is what we then need to determine. And what do I mean by that? If by experience, I have the experience of managing financial issues or crisis like that, I have the skills. I might have a money issue. It might make me feel sad or distressed for a couple, maybe a day or two, but I'm able to figure it out, right? I'm able to, think about it and find a solution and I move on, right? But
Yeah.
if I'm not able to figure it out, and then I begin to think that I'm stuck, that there's no way out, what I'm doing now is that I'm creating a negative perception of that experience. Unfortunately, what I don't know is that the moment that starts to happen, it affects the kind of chemicals my brain starts to secrete. I mentioned earlier that the brain doesn't work with reality, it works with perception, right? So once that starts to happen, that overall affects my mental well-being. If that goes on consistently for a period of time, it can even lead to a depressive episode. It can lead to an anxiety disorder. It can lead to even suicidal thoughts as well. Many people who have attempted suicide is because they think they are stuck, because they are frustrated and overwhelmed, and they think, hey, there's no way out, right? So if I have financial issues, that can eventually lead me there, right? If I don't do something early. And that's where talking to a professional comes in. Now, when you go to a professional and say, hey, I have people who come to me and say, hey, they don't really have a diagnosable mental health condition, but they are struggling with making a decision. They are struggling with, solving something. That is where you sit down with your therapist and you can work these together. The therapist wouldn't give you the answer, but what they do is that they guide you towards being able to solve that problem. And by doing that, you're also building resilience over some other future problems. I'm not a pastor, so I wouldn't tell you you not have problems. Have problems. You would have challenges. But the question is, are you resilient enough to be able to bounce back after these challenges? This is where talking to a professional comes in handy, is that they can guide you and they can prepare you for these experiences so that it doesn't get out of hand and you don't eventually break down with a mental health concern.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. I have a question. However, I'll get back to you. Hi,
Okay,
Madam Dorothy. So I have one line of thoughts I would like to share with you, so you could give us some insight on that. And looking at employee wellness in the workplace from an HR perspective, how do you propose that a wellness need be carried out by an HR? I know I said I was going to get back to you. You were trying to explain this, but I think maybe this is a good time for us to circle back on that. What resources as an HR? I know Mr. Gideon has spoken about putting resources in place at the workplace, to aid mental wellness or the mental well-being of the employees. But from an HR perspective, how do you propose this should be carried out? What are the steps? What are the nitty-gritties in the planning from an HR perspective that can help, to promote this in the workplace?
Right. Thank you very much. I I'm gonna mind ask you to repeat it because my internet went off.
Okay, no problem.
Please, would you please
I'm not sure. I cannot hear you well. I'm not sure I'm the only one. It's sort of breaking.
yes, precisely. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
it's
hear me now?
better now. Yeah.
Yes. So I think what just happened also happened while you were talking. So repeat.
Okay, I should repeat my question. Okay, so I'm saying from all of this conversation, another question was born out. There's a line
Yeah.
of thought, and I would want you to, we want to get your insights on it. As, of course, an HR specialist that you are, how do you propose? So I was making reference to what our MD of Alliance talked about in terms of, putting plans in place from a managerial perspective, documenting these plans. How do you propose that this will be carried out? From the HR perspective, what resources do you think would be needed? Whether planning the resources itself, how does that look like?
Okay, I'm going to let me answer your question in a way that I understand it. So, and I think that Mr. Gideon already started answering the question in terms of how. So, when you're developing your HR agenda for the year, for example, know that you have your learning agenda, your uh, talent management agenda, your succession planning agenda. You have all of these agendas, and the idea is not that all of these agendas help the organization, but the right environment that I would enable the organization in talent, emphasis on talent from my view. Okay. So we want to also ensure that you have wellness agenda.
Okay.
And and basically ideally uh, just like business and HR, HR department should have both a long-term short-term plan for the organization, for understanding the business, understanding the environment. So you want to ensure that you have an agenda for wellness, so that it's not again like um, this is where a lot of us HR people miss. We hear a buzz, say, hey, it's happening. We go running up to the CEO, and the CEO is thinking from a business perspective. I beg, where is the budget for this thing? Did anybody think about the budget for it, right? For me? So at the your long-term plan, you can, for your yearly plan, devise an agenda for, excuse me, for wellness that document exactly what you are going to be doing, and partner with the likes of Chris or colleagues in the market, for example. You will have in that agenda, you will have uh, around who you're going to partner with for counseling, for counseling, for who go to who go to external where there are issues. So that's one.
Okay.
The second thing is you want to also look at how are we working right now? What are the opportunities we're providing for uh, uh, work-life balance? How are we going to, this new year, this new financial year, how are we going to support our employees to ensure they have work-life balance? How are we going to ensure that we are that people are going on leave? Just something as simple as that. That people are going on leave, but we have right policies. I talk
I think Madam Dorothy has network issues. I think one of the key things she has mentioned is number one, planning. Okay, two types of planning: long-term plans for the employees, and of course, a reactable short-term plan that can be implemented. Almost immediately for everyone. Another way she had mentioned as well is having a go-to plan or having a referral to a
I'm
doctor.
so sorry about I think I went off.
Okay.
Yes. So what
Okay.
is our plan to educate, people? What's our plan to educate our employees in terms of, and when should we be educating? Do we want to do it once a quarter? Do we want to do it every month? Even if we're not, even if it's not formal training, do we want to send messages or newsletters every month to educate? So how do we want to promote, so all of those things basically? How do we want to promote a less stressful environment? Introducing people, for example, to issues around mindfulness, providing online workshops, for example. And of course, the physical activity aspect of it. Okay, for example, in one of the organizations where we work, one of our Thank God is Fridays, what we did was we just brought somebody, everybody, we kind of like shut down work at 6 o'clock, and we brought a coach to come and help us exercise, to have fun, and plus. And it was really helpful. So those kinds of initiatives, when, what, how, and what. So all of these things, so that when you are then presenting the plan, you're not presenting that plan alone, you are presenting it along with every other HR plan you have here, and of course a budget for it. Because if you don't have a budget for it, no CEO is going to listen to you because you want to make everybody feel good. You understand? There must be funding for it. How do you want to? And of course, you must also maybe be able to tap into your network as an HR professional to kind of see if you can get some PBs, for example. So that you also want to support people with training on time management, because these are things that affect wellness, mental health, and all of this. Trainings on time management. Africans are not the best when it comes to time management. So I always recommend that every organization should have a time management training for it. So all of this plans, of course, and I had mentioned when I earlier spoke about setting boundaries. This one obviously is an ongoing issue where, yes, I know that 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 is the work time, and of course there are some times that employees need to work. But you want to ensure that not an exception rather than the most. So no, that's more of cultural. Another thing is that God provides over time. You find out that employees, for example, they want
Dorothy, hi.
Yes.
I think maybe we can hold on. Maybe you could check your network, because I think some people having finding it a little bit difficult to hear you.
Oh
The
my
network
goodness.
is like it's bouncing. Yeah. So just try to look into that. However, let me just summarize what she has been saying. I think I was doing a summary earlier. So she was talking about some of the ways in which you can be able to begin the process from an HR perspective. Number one, she talked about planning, long-term planning for what I think it just goes back to what Mr. Gideon had told us, your strategy document on implementing a wellness program for your employees for the year, or an implementable short-term plan, basically. And she also talked about having a trained specialist psychologist, doctor readily available for instances where an employee would be there would be recommended recommendations for that employee, to go and see a doctor regarding whatever they are going through, or what exactly is affecting them. So another thing she had mentioned as well is physical exercises, doing physical exercises, planning for physical exercises, to be done, maybe Thank God It's Friday programs that employees can be able to engage in, and some other physical activities that would be at the disposal of the employee. She also mentioned, apart from having these activities, there should be a well-stated plan on how often will this be discussed in the organization or among their employees, maybe once a quarter, twice in the year, and things like that. She also mentioned her last point was she was talking about budgeting. So you need to, for each of these activities or getting these professionals, there must be a budget attached to this. So you must come prepared when you are presenting your plan to your organization or the CEO. So it has been really enlightening so far. I think I would like to call on everyone to leave some questions for us. If you have any question, any thoughts you would like to share with myself or the panelists, you could always drop it and I would see it, and also you could direct it to any one of the panelists and I will do justice to, of course, address it to them. So I think this now takes me back to Mr. Gideon. Looking at it, I will always refer it from the CEO perspective, because at the end of the day, the box falls on your table. As the CEO of the organization, you are the one who finally could give a verdict on how these policies will be implemented. How do you think creating a supportive work culture and prioritizing mental wellness, what does that mean to you as a CEO? Creating a supportive work culture in a company. So we've talked about plans, we talked about coming up with your strategy for the year, coming up with exercises, what to do. However, what are the things that physically or maybe abstractly can show that this organization is promoting employee wellness?
I will shift away a bit from HR and just talk about culture generally. And so you said, you were speaking about how do we create that environment. So for me, I think there are two things that comes to my mind. One, I think there should be a deliberate structure that we can see. And then there should also be an informal structure. I'm talking philosophy here. Let me come back to the deliberate structure.
Please break it down for us. Thank you.
So deliberate structure is all the things that HR would do. You think about health and wellness. What role does it play? You do all the arrangements, you do all the planning, you do all the awareness, you do all the training, you come up with the physical activities, you come up with the wellness activities, you do it month on month, you do activities around all the things that the doctor mentioned, around physical wellness, around mental wellness, and also around social well-being. So there are deliberate things that are done. So you see that in doing the physical things, the things that people can see, HR plays a lot of role, because if they don't plan well, if they don't sell the idea well, if they cannot link it to the value, I'm not talking about revenue or profit or anything, no, value. That is, oh, it makes sense. If we do this, this is what we hope to achieve. Those things, if they don't sell it well, it will not pass through the budgeting process. If it does not pass through the budgeting process, then it cannot be implemented. So it starts from, so the physical one is on the part of HR, the planning, the activities and all of that to convince people that they should be part of it, to convince management of the EAP, and then all the things that they need to do, implementation, all of that, that's the physical one. So that one, Madam Dorothy, that is her forte. So she will talk about how we do the planning, how we do the implementation and all of that. That must happen. That is number one. If it is absent, then we are not serious about health and wellness in the workplace. Sometimes we take we take seriously things around the knowledge, skills, the competency framework. We take seriously about, we put a lot of resources, a lot of time on all of that, because somebody has been able to convince us that this is the way to manage talent and all of that. So we believe them and then we follow. So that one must be done and must be done well. So let me move to the informal one. The informal one is how the organization itself is structured. Now you talk about mental wellness. I like what the doctor said about the social well-being. How is the social situation in the workplace? When people come to work, is it that everybody sits still, no noise? It's like we're in a classroom, you know, we come in at this time. Yes, we come in at this time, we close at this time. Somebody is late maybe because of traffic. You don't care whether the person has been in traffic. It's always, why are you late? We don't want to find out how or why the person is late. Or it's even in terms of the way the work is structured. People who can work from home, are you forcing them to come to the office? People who can work in the office, are you forcing them to work from home? Are there? So that is the first thing that happens. How is the whole culture like? Are people free to discuss among themselves? Do people discuss in your organization? Do people laugh? Or when you hear people laughing, then it means these are a bunch of unserious people. How can they be laughing in the office? It's also part of the culture. Do people even play? Do you have activities where you chat, where you play? For instance, in my organization, we do a lot of those play. When we want to play like this, we really play. And it's not something that we do once in a while, no. It is very regular. There's hardly a month that will pass by without us having that play time. And when we talk about play, you need to go to the internet to see some of the things. We play games, we play board games, we even bring table tennis to our office. We do all of that. What it does is that it helps with that mental wellness. You know, naturally, a lot of people we call introverts, they do not want to come out when they have any of these issues, even if it's a relationship issue, even if it's a financial issue, if it's issue with their family. Most people would not ordinarily want to discuss them. So if the environment is informal, all of a sudden you force people to discuss them. You are not going to say people should discuss, no, but because you have created an environment where there's friendship, where there's a togetherness, where there's like a family together, it helps. That one is not the only that HR is not the only person that can implement that. No, that is a collective. It's for everybody, but it starts from the CEO, like you said, and then to management. Then the second part is how the people in management, the people in executive management, how do people see them? When the people enter the office and they see their faces, are they tempted to run away from the office? Do they even stand up from their offices to chat with people? Is it a taboo to do that? In my office, we don't even have doors. So there's nothing like you're knocking to go and meet someone. So ours might be, you know, on the extreme. But you see that the removal of doors, we don't have doors. All of us were in an open space. What it does is that it breaks that barrier. Sometimes some people muster up the courage to want to speak to someone, but with the slightest barricade, they are gone. So maybe they want to knock, and then somebody inside, that's it, they're gone. But you create an environment where people are free, where there's an informal environment, it helps. You also then create an environment where discussions are not only in the office. You should have lunch meetings, you have breakfast meetings, you have events outside the office. It also helps because from my little experience, I've found that some of those very heavy discussions, when people have those heavy discussions, they rarely will speak up in the office. But when they have formed a bond in the office, step one. And then when they can have an informal setting, that is stage two. And then the people in executive management, do they offer themselves up to the younger ones to speak to them? There's one thing to say, I have an open door policy, but your action, your demeanor and everything will say the opposite. Do you really love these young ones? Do you really love the employees? Can they really come to talk to you? even those one or two that have come to talk to you, do they hear about their issues on the floor? Somebody has come to confide in you and
Confide
ask
in you.
something. Do they then hear about their issues on the floor? Will HR then use those things that they have confided in somebody against them? It destroys trust. When you build trust, so building of trust is one thing. They are trying to build trust in the formal way, in the informal way, in the environment, in the way of work, in the way we interact, in the activities. You try to build trust and you're saying that, no, it's okay. Even you as a CEO, when you are stressed, you say it, oh, I'm not thinking well today. Vulnerability, you're not thinking well, you're not thinking well, you're not God. There are times
you're a human being.
Yes. So when you can say it in a meeting and you're like, I'm not thinking well, somebody should help me. I think I need to see my psychologist. You see, when you say things like that, it helps to break the myth. So people will feel like, so the CEO has a psychologist. And you do some of these things deliberately, and all of a sudden people will come to you. Why do you go to see a psychologist? Because of this, because of that. So you see, these things are informal. They are not the formal one that HR must do and do well, but the informal one has to do with the leader, the leaders, the senior people, the fact that they can open their hearts to welcome people, the fact that their activities, their actions can make them welcoming and people can speak to them, the fact that when people speak to them, they are able to do something, and they also keep the confidentiality. These things will help. So you see what I mean by there must be formal and informal. In the informal, in our own case, we've also added our board members, because sometimes some people will have some issues and they are not comfortable discussing with anybody in the office. But you see, the board members are elderly people. And because employees feel like they are almost external and have their interests, we've also added them to our formal structure so people can also speak to board members. So by the time you create all of these, there will still be that one or two people who will find it a struggle, but generally 85% of the people will have their mental health in place. So that's the way I would like to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think you really did justice to this question, because you have a case. I think you really answered the way I was expecting, and I do hope that everyone here sees from that perspective as well. There are things you do as a leader, as a manager, that shows some sort of example, that acts as a sort of example to your employees without you even knowing. Of course, from your own end, they are deliberate, but the employees, they tend to key into this and see that, oh, so my boss is even a human being like me, oh, so my boss feels things like I feel as well, So I'm talking about, of course, the CEO comes in. I've been in an organization whereby once the MD is in the office like this, no smiling, everybody serious for some weird reason. And at the end of the day, you find out that employees can't even gist and talk within themselves. I'm saying that, of course, time is going by really, really, really fast. I saw that Irene Jahenda actually asked a question, but Gideon has actually done some justice to that, about how employers can strike a balance between productivity and mental health. And Gideon had responded that as a manager, one of the things that makes you a manager, of course, is foresight. And of course, you have to have some sort of understanding on how to balance both for your employees. You have the productivity aspect, but you also need to know that if an employee's mental health it's not in the right place, that employee can never be productive, no matter how much you yell and shout at that. So just a few questions. So let me try to juggle up. Mr. Gideon, just give me like 1 minute to answer this question. There are two questions, but let's take 30 seconds to answer both. As a CEO, what would you recommend as part of creating a supportive work culture, a formal supportive work culture? What would you recommend? A physical psychologist in the company or outside? Just quickly.
I would recommend outside. We're Africans, we're not Americans. No matter how nice the CEO looks, no matter how nice senior management looks, there's always the iota of suspicion. Am I sure? Am I not sure? So it is always better to have external psychologist.
All right, thank you so much. So one question again in 30 seconds. Speaking of culture, of course, workplace culture, what would you advise? I'm going to ask everybody this question, but coming from an MD, I just want to know your perspective. What would you advise an employee that the work culture is not good? I don't want to recommend anything from you have the work culture coming from even from the CEO. The work culture is really not okay. You have they don't care about mental health, like you said. You come to the office and they are yelling at you while you're on the traffic, and everybody knows traffic. I mean, if you're in Lagos, Nigeria, you know traffic is a serious thing. What would you recommend? What would you advise an employee in such situation? Dorothy, I'll get to you, but please, Gideon.
So everyone, especially every individual, they should understand their needs. They must understand what they need to survive. And all of us need money to survive. So that's a basic, that's a default. Now, where you are making the money, and it's now affecting your mental health, meaning that you may get to a point you will make this money and you will not enjoy it. Remember what the doctor, how he defined it. There's physical, there's mental, there's social. You make a lot of money, but you don't enjoy it. So as an employee, as an individual, my take will be, I need money, but where do I want to make that money from? So if I find myself in an organization where I think that it is affecting my mental health, I would immediately start to make plans to get to a place where the mental health situation will support me. And I'm very careful with this. I'm not saying immediately you notice, just resign. No, I said immediately you notice, begin to make plans to get to a place. But be careful that it is not your perception of the environment, that it is reality. Some young people just jump from one place to the other because one person has spoken to them rudely, because one person has done something that they don't like, and so they label everybody. So before you jump, before you begin to make plans to exit, especially if you have never worked in different places before, and because you don't have the basis to compare, you might even be in the best place, but one person has spoken to you, then you jump. Before you do that, speak to mentors. Speak to people that are much older, people that have worked in other places. Explain to them the truth, what has happened. This is what is happening, this is what is happening, this is how I feel, and it's not helping me to think well, and so it's now affecting my reaction. I'm beginning to become an expert in mental health because of our doctor.
Let's leave that for doctor.
Yeah, so this is how I feel and all of that. You speak to them, tell them the truth. Let them now guide you, but don't just jump unless you are sure. But when you are sure, make plans to get to a place where you can work and enjoy your work. That's what I would say to that.
Thank you so much, Gideon. So there's a place for feelings, there's a place for perception. You perceive that this person doesn't like you, you perceive that this person spoke to you in a certain way and you're just angry. People act because they're angry. So Dorothy, you want to say something on that? Let's just be brief. You want to say something on that?
Well, I totally agree that well, they do say that perception is reality. However, before you take a decision based on your perception, speak to mentors, because there's something called African law that we are all very familiar with. Sometimes when you see somebody, some leaders, when you see somebody doing well, they want to, they want to encourage, but they don't know, they're not doing it perhaps not in a way that the person concerned will do it. They're giving the person more work. They're, basically pulling the person into almost everything. And this person may perceive it as, oh, this guy doesn't like me. He's always, making me busy. Not realizing that he's actually doing this. So I would say, if you have that kind of perception, talk to people around. Your mentors has already been mentioned, but also have a conversation with whoever is taking that. Now, on the flip side, if if you do see potential in someone, be transparent about it, so that the person obviously be able to but I always say that when you settle into an organization and you have had time to go through the culture, and if you see that the culture, the values of the organization, or rather the way the values are being lived in the organization are at variance with your begin to plan exit. So you don't move and get yourself in
All
trouble.
right.
That should be after us speaking to people.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think so we've gotten
just to mention, Ruona, there are quite a few people who are bearing my name on the call because I forwarded my link to various people. So I see them raising their hands.
Yes,
it doesn't mean it's me.
I thought it was you. Okay. That's nice. So whoever is Dorothy that's raising up their hands, I think maybe you have a question for us. Maybe you could just unmute. Okay, so while we're figuring out to unmute that person, Dr. Chris, please just a quick one from you before we dive into, of course, question and answers directly. So just brief, do you agree with what both of them just said in relation to an employee being disgruntled or being in a okay, let me not say disgruntled now, being in a work culture and environment that actually affects their mental health? Just briefly, because I have other questions for you, so I just wanted to know if you
So
agree with them.
the answer is a 1000% yes.
Okay.
I totally agree with everything they've said. In fact, it looked like, so usually I have programs where I do talks like this, and when I was hearing them speak, I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. I don't have to say anything anymore, right?
Okay.
Because it actually said everything. I like even the part where you talked about, not being satisfied at work or being this, and it's like Gideon said something about, coming up with a plan. I usually call it the exit plan, right? The exit plan. When you've tried to see, things are not changing and it's not about you, create an exit plan. Don't just leave immediately. Create an exit plan. That might take time. And I love how you responded to it. So both of them are just awesome. Awesome, actually. Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. So now my question for you. Just briefly, in maybe about 30 seconds, what advice would you give someone who's troubled about, because I know when you were talking, you talked about social well-being, okay, that can as well affect mental illness, right? So what advice would you give as a doctor to someone who's troubled about their social well-being that is actually now affecting their mental health?
Well, so I subscribe to a school of thought that says that, so it's called the rational living therapy school of thought, that says that many of us, we are too hard on ourselves in the sense that we expect to maybe have a sort of a manual to be able to understand life, And so let me try to explain that. If a person is struggling, they need to understand that most struggles or most challenges can be fixed, right? They can be, dealt with. The reason why the person is struggling is because they are attempting to use a skill or a response that they have used before.
Okay.
That might have worked before for them, right? But it's no longer working now. But they have failed to recognize that, hey, this response is no longer working or is not applicable to this situation. And that is where talking to somebody or even introspecting comes. Is that when you are less critical of yourself and you're able to help yourself realize that, okay, maybe I need to discover another skill. Maybe I need to discover another way, rather than looking at it from the perspective of, I'm finished. Oh, this life is not fair, which is what many people really start to do. They start to think about how life is not fair, how life is not balanced and all that, rather than looking at it from a perspective of, okay, maybe the challenge here is not about life being unfair or being, imbalanced. It's simply that I am attempting to address something with a skill that has worked for me before and is no longer working right now. And the solution to that most times is to go and learn a new way of addressing it.
For
Right?
addressing the
That's the
situation.
solution. Go and learn. You can, and there are many ways to learn. You know, when we're talking about talking to a therapist is not the only form of therapy. There are different forms of therapy. You know, you could read books. It's called bibliotherapy. You know, it's a form of therapy. There are different forms of therapy. So sometimes you might not be comfortable with talking to a professional immediately. Go and try to read. Don't go to Google. Oh. I'm not advising you to go to Google. Google will give you diagnosis that even your grandfather will be scared for you. so
Okay.
so you know, but be open to growth, be open to development. Don't think that it's over. You know, just be open to learning. And if talking to a therapist is the approach that you require, please feel free to do so.
All right. Thank you so much. So just one last question before we go into the question and answer. Doctor, I think this one is very important. We've talked about educating ourselves, educating employees in the workplace on how to, approach people, conversations, how you talk to people, how you send emails, how you chat. These are things that can affect your colleague or affect, some other person or your subordinates, as the case may be. Now, addressing stigma and promoting open communication about, of course, mental health concerns. As a doctor, how would you take this part? How would you see us, as a society, addressing this stigma? And of course, what would you say to encourage open conversation or communication around this? People that may have been diagnosed with things like this.
Okay, so first I would say that we fear what we don't understand, right? When you don't understand something, you're likely going to fear it. And that's why education seems to be at the forefront in battling stigma. Take, for example, a few years ago, do you know that people were actually killing in Nigeria, right? Because they didn't have the right information. So they thought, hey, this is evil. And so they'll kill them. These days, people are paying money to have more than one births, right? And so we believe that as we educate ourselves, as we create this knowledge about what mental health is, and that's why you notice that when I define mental health, I didn't try to look at it from a very technical perspective. I just said, hey, there are three things: the way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond. Because if everybody can see from that perspective, then they will be less scared about having that conversation. Because for many people, stigma is the result of the lack of knowledge, which is linked to the fear of possession, demonic possession, of being addressed as weak, and these other things. But when we get to see, and I like what Mr. Gideon said, where he said that if the CEO is saying, hey, I want to go see my own therapist, people get to say, if CEO can be seeing therapists, that means there
Who am
must
I?
be something, there must be something about this that makes it. So they want to associate with it as well. That's why you see that when celebrities come on social media and say, hey, I just spoke with my shrink, everybody now wants to start talking to their shrink, right? Because they are demystifying and saying, hey, this is not about madness or illness or spirituality or demonic possession. It is something that you need for growth. Now, if you are struggling, I think that what I would advise that you do is identify somebody that you can trust. Start there. Just identify someone that you can trust, somebody that's going to be confidential. That wouldn't, after sharing that, you know what that Chris told me. If you hear what Chris is going through, in fact, you know that your own is small. Not that kind of a person. Someone you can trust. Identify someone you can trust. They don't have to have the solution, but the fact that you can share with them also opens up your mind to considering alternatives to solving the problem. You know, like
Exactly.
they say, a problem shared is half solved, right? Because significantly, it has a psychological effect that when you can share with somebody and you can feel that they are there for you. Even in therapy, sometimes we don't say anything, we just listen to our clients. And at the end of the session, they're telling you, wow, I enjoyed the session. And I want to be okay. What did I say? But
Yeah.
because you've given
Most
them
people
that
just want,
opportunity.
sometimes people just want someone who listens to them.
Exactly, exactly. So that's identify someone you can talk to. But it's that
All right.
open mindset that this is not about possession. It's simply about growth. I mean, And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. So I don't know, Irene, are you there? So the Dorothy that has their hand up, I don't know if you can unmute that mic. So maybe you can take the question that they have.
While that is on, can I just speak about some of the myths as well?
All right, please go ahead.
One of them is that men are strong. Men don't cry. Men cannot have mental health issues. That is why you see that a lot of men die before their wives. They try to keep everything. You can't, why would you go and share? When you share, that means you are weak.
Why can't share with your wife now?
Yeah, but some don't. And so they can't see a therapist. They don't share with their friends. They don't share with their wives. Rather, they go and take something. They believe that when they take something, then it will suppress it. Yes, it will suppress it for those few minutes, but when it clears out, you are in a much worse position than where you are. So that myth must be broken, that men are strong, men don't cry. We need to break it. That is number one. The second myth is that people believe that when you seek help is a sign of weakness. No, you can handle it. Is it not you? A whole you, how can you say you couldn't handle this? That is a myth. Everyone needs help. So when you need help, don't think that when you ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. No, it's just a sign that you are wise. You know that you cannot get out of that deep pit by yourself. If you fall into a deep pit, you cannot get out of the pit by yourself. You need people to be able to take you out of it. Myth number three is that I don't want to burden them. I don't want to burden them. So, everyone has their own issues. I don't want to go and make my issue as part of their own. It's a myth. People really want to help you. People really love you. People really want to help you. Wait until they tell you that you are burdening them. Don't stay in your room. Don't stay in your corner in the office and say you don't want to burden people. The company has paid so much to get an external psychologist. The company is educating senior management to say, let's listen to people. Do not just take advantage of all of this. Take advantage. Don't feel like you are burdening people. So I just feel like I should voice these ones out because it's in my chest. So I'm glad that you gave me the opportunity to talk about this.
I wanted to say that you are also shaking a table, and are you shaking the table, especially regarding women and men?
Shook the table.
Yeah, you shook that table, and are you sure we want to break that table today?
No, not today. So let's give room for questions, please. I know we've spoken about a lot of things. So I was trying to get Irene or someone who has access to the person that's okay. Dorothy with the hands up, your mic is unmuted. So we can take your question if you're there.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm not really I don't know, but I'm not really the Dorothy with his hands up, but I thank you for the opportunity. Ruona, well done. Thank you. And my thanks goes to all the panelists too. My name is Tunde-Ajala.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Ruona. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Gideon just points a very vital issue that we need to deal with in our setup, particularly in the African setup, and that's the issue of the manhood. The issue of the manhood is talking about, Gideon just said, I just started laughing when he said this, no man should cry. A man does not cry and everything. We have this macho feeling about ourselves. The day I started telling myself that, oh boy, you can sleep when you are driving. It's the day I slept when I thought I was man. I was man enough that nothing, I cannot sleep when I'm driving. But the day I slept off while I was driving, I knew that that can happen at any time. So the issue we have now, talking about mental health, and Dr. Chris also pinpointed that. Dr. Chris, we need to break a lot of things because we've held it for too long.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. A man also cries. It is not less, you are not less masculine when you cry. There are so many feelings that you keep bottling up. And when you now finally burst, everybody is affected.
Exactly.
You are not able to even come out. Let me tell you one other thing is that spirit of depression, I call it a spirit because it's a spirit. When it gets hold of you,
Doctor will not agree to that. Doctor is laughing. Doctor will never agree to
I
that.
know. Thank God I'm also talking from his perspective. Doctor will talk from the medical part. No, I'm saying this because when it gets hold of you, you need to talk to people. You need, doctor said that talking to people is not the only therapy. Thank God there are so many, but you need to access one of these solution that's been
I agree.
available. We keep on doing things and then bottling things and then saying the ladies have a way of just chatting out all this. They talk to their friends, they talk to people and get over it. But the man will bottle it and then will start beating up the wife, will start shouting on the children, will start going to the office and then affecting the relationship that God has built around you. We need to correct this. Thank you for the opportunity,
Yeah,
Ruona.
I agree.
God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tunde. Really, really great contribution. That's true. We have this. I think at the beginning I had mentioned about this African thing. You know, the black man thing. We have this thing of man of. And then apart from the whole African thing, you now have the African man. Always feeling like, oh, the man is supposed to be the head, supposed to be the know it all. Even this thing progresses even from the home to the workplace, and then you find out that even in the workplace, men are not so in control of their emotions. They say women are very emotional in the workplace, but on the flip side, you find out that men are not even able to communicate their emotions in the workplace, communicate how they really, really feel about some conversations. So I think it's a very good point you had mentioned. Very, very good one. Please, any other question? Do we have any question? Now would be time to ask any question we have. Question. If you have a question, just try to raise up your hand so that we can unmute your mic, basically. Okay, if there are no questions, maybe we can take one or two affirmations or contributions from some of the attendees, basically on what you've heard so far. What are your thoughts, and basically how you've seen the webinar so far. We could just take one or two people. We
Rhoda, I just wanted to say something here. So it's refreshing to actually hear his CEO talk the way that he does.
exactly. I was really amazed, and
Really,
I mean,
because usually the resistance, usually when you talk to any CEO, most CEOs, not all of them, but most CEOs, all they're looking at is the naira and the kobo. So it's refreshing to hear a CEO who understands that these are critical issues, that people-related issues, not just wellness. Gideon also talked about other areas. Please, the Dorothy with the unmuted mic, please, don't let them be saying it's me. Mute. So, and I don't know how we're going to do it, Gideon. We do need to help or educate other people that when you pay attention to food-related issues in the workplace, it actually helps the bottom line. There is a link. there is a link. And of course, from an HR perspective, we HR professionals need to begin to help CEOs see that link. You know, the more you pay attention to your people, the more the bottom line will increase.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gideon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think we can circle back on last thoughts, basically on just yes, please go ahead. I thought somebody was talking.
Oh, yes, yes. I just wanted to mention, I've been resisting the temptation to talk about spirituality and mental health. I was trying to resist it. I would say, I was trying to bind the temptation, but it looks like the temptation wasn't bound. So I need to say that there's a strong link between spirituality and mental health and mental well-being, right? But that also means that therapists, psychologists recognize that what we try to avoid most times is the argument of demonic possession. And there's a reason why. Because for many people, when they take that stance, they take a passive role towards their mental well-being, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're saying. Hey, but whether it's spiritual or not, you need to take an active role, not a passive role, where you are expecting somebody to pray for you or do something for you, and suddenly the spirit will disappear, right? And there are many religious, references from the Christian perspective, from the Muslim perspective, from traditional religions that help us understand that, hey, there's a strong link between spirituality and mental well-being, right? But I also want us to understand that a very strong root to your spirit is your soul. The key to your spirit is your soul. And your soul here has to do with your emotions. Your soul has to do with your thoughts, what you take in, what you absorb. And this is where mental health really sits on. Is to say, if we can address this part of your well-being, right, then the spiritual part of it also will be addressed. The spiritual part of it will be addressed. That's why you see that many places. Now, permit me to quote something from the Christian book, which is the Bible, from Romans 12, I think 2. It says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. It doesn't say be transformed by casting out demons and, all that, right? Or casting out spirits. It says, hey, be transformed by renewing your mind. That is the key. That if you can renew your mind, if you can, and in psychology, we say that if you can change your thought process, your patterns, your thought patterns, your body would also respond as well. And if the devil has power over anybody, that's what he does. What he does is that it creates a mental pattern that people get stuck with. And that's when you come into therapy, what we try to do is to help you change that. But in some cases, we know that we have to probably prescribe some medication. Now, the last question for some people, for me, is that, hey, but why is it that some people don't get better? And I try to give them an analogy, which is that if I have a fracture in my leg and I do nothing about it, what you're going to see is that at some point, I wouldn't be able to use that leg again. Does it mean that the devil has taken over my leg? Not necessarily. It's simply because I didn't pay attention to it. The part of our body that controls our mental well-being is your brain. Your brain is an organ. That means that if there's something wrong with the brain and you don't do anything about it, it could get worse. In fact, we'll be able to show you that the structure of the brain changes. Now, it could get to a point where it becomes difficult, right, for the person to get back to how they used to be before, because the brain structure has changed negatively. So that's something I want to push out to many people, is that spirituality is important, but it's also very important for you to understand that the root to spirituality is your mind. The root to your spirituality is your mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Chris. I think we're like 9 minutes to the end of this webinar. Mr. Gideon, just a few seconds, within 10 seconds, just tell us what should be our take home here? You know, just some final words. They take home, you know, to everyone. Just a few seconds, please.
Let me use 1 minute, and I will be faithful. So I will start from the top, that as a leader, as leaders, we must show empathy at work and have discussions with people beyond the numbers. Show empathy at work. Have discussions beyond the numbers. That's number one. Number two, for the leaders, make yourself available for people to approach you to discuss their questions. Number three, as a leader, when things about mental wellness come up, put them at the same priority with all the other initiatives that you need to drive productivity, because it actually does drive productivity. When you think about the simple definition that I have personally learned today about feeling, about reaction, and about thinking, what else is left for an employee? So if you think about it that way and place it at the level of strategy, to help. So that is for the management. If you come down to the next level, to HR, make sure that you sell this thing well. And I use the word sell. Make sure that you have a complete plan, you involve people in the plan, you educate them, and then people have the same, almost the same understanding as you on this mental health issue. And then come up with the implementation. But that line, try to learn how to show the value between these initiatives and whether it's productivity, whether it's value, whatever, but show that there's return on expectation, even if it's not return on investment. But if we do this, this is what will happen. You see this person, this is what will happen. So HR should do that. And then your EAPs and all the other things, do not do them like a quarterly or annual thing. No, let it be a regular part of the organization. The last thing is for those that we are battling for. All of us, me
Employees.
included. Me, I'm the #1 employee. So I'm talking as an employee and to all employees. When HR have done their own job, when they have an EAP program, when they have come up with all the initiatives, when the CEO and top management have availed themselves, when they are saying they will help and all of that, accept help. Don't think that you can do this alone. There are times where you need help. There are times where you fall into the deep end of the pool. Accept the help. I believe that if all of us do this and we create a very cozy environment where people can share, create that informal setting, we will be able to get through this very serious issue of mental health in our organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Last words.
So thank you very much. I think the first thing I'd like to say to everyone, particularly to HR professionals, is that you need to, if you're to support your organization effectively regard to mental health and wellness, you need to be very strategic in the way decisions you bring to the organization. So ensure you're planning, ensure that you are monitoring, ensure you're collaborating with external people and support. Ensure that you are monitoring progress over time. And most of all, ensure that you're helping the leadership, the CEO, see the link between employee wellness and value that brings to the organization. And indeed, bottom line, or return on, like Gideon has said. And let's stop paying service to issues. Let's stop running after one initiative because it is the in. Let's have a strategic plan to actually address these, and of course, over time, the organization will see the value. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Chris, last words.
Awesome. I think they've said everything. So I'll probably just give quotes here. One of them is that mental well-being is a collaborative effort, and that's why there's a popular saying that when I is replaced with we, illness becomes wellness. So for us to
Exactly.
achieve wellness in the workplace, we need to do it together. For the individual, you also need to understand that your body is a vehicle, and you need to take care of it. Because if you don't, you wouldn't get to your destination. You get stuck on the road, right? So don't wait for HR or CEO to cajole you to take care of yourself. It's supposed to be your priority. When CEO and HR helps you, please accept it with all your hand and all your might. But if you're in a situation where they are not doing that, please, it's your responsibility. So create a me time, right? A me time for yourself. A me time for me simply means, intentionally meditate on the things that are working. Yes, there's no fuel, there's traffic and all that, but choose to focus mostly on the ones that are working. So even though there's traffic, I still have life. Even though there's no fuel, at least I have a job to go to. So focus on the things that are working, meditate on things that are working. Now, engage with people, positive connections, people who have your back. You need people, even if you're an introvert or an extrovert, even if it's just one person, you need people. So engage with people, positive connections. And then finally, create time for things that matter to you. Self-development, for example, exercise, or even going to the massage. One of the things that they didn't mention that women do that men don't do is that in addition to talking, women also take care of themselves. Women will pamper themselves. They will go to the salon, make their hair. And this guy will probably, like myself now, my hair, I'm keeping old school. But please go to the barber, cut your hair, go to the spa, do a pedicure and manicure, right? It's not for women alone. Do facials. Facials are not for women alone. These little things that you can do, they help your brain secrete serotonin. And serotonin is the feel-good chemical that is important for optimal well-being. So meditate on the positive, engage the positive connections, and create time for the things that matter for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you really so much. Final words from me would be that we are all participants here. We've all benefited one way or the other. I, on my own, I know that I've heard enough, of course, to help me and, of course, to help people around me to be better, both as a person and also at the workplace. I think what is paramount from this webinar is at the end of the day, we learn to take care of our mental health. We learn to surround ourselves with the positives, whether at the workplace, at home, as an employee. Your mental health is very important to your performance, to your productivity level at the office or anywhere you find yourself. So I think one of the key things we would be able to look at, or we should be able to take out of here, is that we need ourselves to be at our utmost best for us to be productive. So I don't know if we can get, like I was trying to say, if we could get some few people. I see Benta Yeko. I don't know if you're still here. Maybe you could say one or two things, how the webinar has been, and if it's been exciting for you, what you've learned so far, so that we can, be able to, of course, get some perspective from everyone that is here. But apart from that, I think this is where I draw the curtains. My name is Ruona, and Ruona Oruovo. I am currently a regional business manager at WorkPay. Um, this is me saying thank you so much to everyone who has been here. Thank you so much to our speakers, the panelists. You have been amazing. You've given us insights, very educative and informative. Thank you so much to everyone. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Louis Alozie, who is our country manager, to round up here. Thank you so much, everyone. Louis?
Thank you, Ruona. It's been a rewarding morning. Already it's 12 noon here in Nigeria. I know in Ghana it's about 11 a.m. in the morning. I want to especially thank Dorothy. I want to thank Gideon, and I want to thank Dr. Chris, for taking out time to have been with us here today. It's been a rewarding session, and in fact, with a lot of information. I am just thinking, the discussion here so far, I think it has opened our minds to a lot of things, and I don't feel we should just have like a one-off discussion on this topic because it's rich. I think I am thinking of something. I am looking at Dorothy and I'm looking at Gideon and Dr. Chris, and I'm saying, you don't know what you've done here today. You just wait for my next call. After now, expect my call. We'll have to take this to the next level. This discussion, this topic is really, really, really big. It's bigger than what we think. And I feel that this is exactly what the business environment needs now globally. We need to heal, especially in Nigeria. We need to actually heal our mental sanity. It is very, very critical. And, our next webinar in Q3 is just like going to be like a follow-up to this, because that topic truly is looking at the employee now, the talent, how you can now retain this talent, So this is part of the things too that organizations will start looking at. And when Gideon mentioned, no, it was Dorothy that mentioned TGIF. We have something called WorkPay TGIF. It happens once in a quarter. Our next one is happening sometime in July. And I'm thinking, we have a snooker board, we have a table tennis. I'm thinking I will invite these people physically. I want to just learn this mental health personally. I think there's something about it. All right. So Gideon, it is when I come to Ghana, or when we come to Ghana, we'll play yours. That's your monthly game. We need to be part of that game, really. And Dr. Chris, is interesting that it's the first time I'm speaking to you. We tried everything we could to see how we could reach out to you before the webinar. It was a bit difficult because I know you are a very busy person. So please, if you don't mind, please, I will drop my email on the chat box. Please look at my email. Then just send me personal details, your phone number, your personal email. And we have a lot of things we can do together, because work a software company focusing on human resources, everything that has to do with an employee in the organization, from recruitment to disengagement. It is a long chain. It is a very long chain. So we feel there's need for us to expand this beyond what we have done today. And there are some things we can take back to management to say, hey, we can add this to some of the things we already offer. So please, Dr. Chris, do me a favor, please send me your details. I have dropped my email on the platform. Sorry, I think there's a mistake there. Let me correct it. Is LA, my workpay.com. Yeah. So all our participants, for all our panelists, it's been a beautiful morning. It's been rewarding. It's been wonderful. We are so glad to have you here. Please, when we call you the next time, do not hesitate to join WorkPay Nigeria, West Africa, Africa, to change the world of the employees in a workplace. These are the best resources we can think of in an organization, and that is how we are positioning ourselves to ensure that they do well in organizations, so as to increase the ROI of this organization. So from us in WorkPay, we want to thank you. We want to say we appreciate you. We want to say thank you again, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I think with this, we have come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much to everyone who has made this possible. We look forward to having you next on board. Also, we look forward to us implementing what we have learned here, taking care of ourselves, and of course, as managers or CEOs, employees, ensuring that the workplace is conducive for everyone. So I think with this, we have come to the end of the meeting. Please do have a lovely day ahead. a more relaxed day for your mental health. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye.